So, Jacques, we've known each other for 4 or 5 years now. We always end up at these conferences together, and we discuss many things and solve all the world's problems, which is great. But there's been a lot of evolution in those 5 years. So what the industry looked like 5 years ago and the way it is today, and especially in the Middle East where you're working, maybe just tell me a little bit about what you see in terms of what's changed and where you think things are going to be headed in your region and maybe even further abroad, like Southeast Asia as well. It's quite interesting.
Sure. I mean, I would start by talking about a little bit the Middle East. So on the Middle East side, the past 5 years, I would say, were a bit challenging because of many reasons. There was a bit of the oil crisis, the dip in prices of oil, which reduced the capacity of some passengers to travel, like Saudi tourists, for example, coming to Dubai or within the region. We saw a significant decrease, I would say, in this. And then the geopolitical situation didn't help as well with the Qatar situation and the Iran situation. However, I think that this region proved to be quite resilient, although there was a small dip in traffic, but I would say that this dip wasn't as proportional to the events that were happening. So this is for the Middle East.
But I would also say those political shocks or those disturbances also opened up those governments to the idea of privatization as well. And I'm thinking the Saudis are now looking at it in a big way and moving in that direction.
Definitely.
The Kuwaitis are moving in that direction. Even here the Emiratis may be looking at that.
Exactly.
So, sometimes good things happen out of bad events.
Although the model could change between an airport and another, a country and another. So some countries might need less investment but more international operators' expertise and to de-risk part of the operations.
Exactly.
This could be the case of Emirates one day. The Emirates one day, if they go into partnership with international operators, because they have already invested heavily in some infrastructure. They might need some additional ones, but I would say the expertise should come more on improving and making more revenues from the existing operations. Kuwait is the same. They're investing heavily in new facilities. There's a new terminal in Kuwait happening, and the Kuwaitis do need support in these airports. But the biggest market, of course, remains Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Saudi Arabia has 28 airports, including domestic and international ones. They're above 100 million passengers a year. So this is where most of the pipeline is, and here you have a combination of pure O&M contracts and full concessions that will be coming soon.
Now, obviously, there's some things you may not be able to talk about at this point, but you've had a lot of involvement as Egis in Saudi Arabia. Did a lot of work back in Jeddah not so long ago, or I guess you're continuing to do that. Maybe just a little bit of a background on what you're doing and what you see coming.
Definitely. So, we've been quite involved since 10 years now and as aviation teams of Egis in the region, with people based in Dubai and working in all of the region. Saudi Arabia as well was the biggest, is and still is our biggest country in terms of projects. We've worked on different types of opportunities, either on the airport side or the airline side. So I can talk about the recent projects where we're assisting Saudi Airlines, for example, to move their operations from the old terminal to the new terminal at Jeddah, and so on. We work a lot with Jeddah Airport, with the new cities that are coming on the Red Sea coast. We're quite involved. So this is the airport side, but however, we're as well very well involved on these new airspace projects in the region. So we've designed the new airspace change of UAE with the congestion of the different airports that are in a very small country. So whenever you land in an airport in UAE, you'll be using a procedure that was designed by us. And as well, we're working currently on the Saudi Future Airspace concept, which is the redesign of the whole airspace of Saudi Arabia, which is a major...
Well, it's getting much more complicated, that airspace.
And congestion. Being here in GAD, we heard Boeing this morning talking about different ways of to increase productivity of the sector, and we talk a lot about airlines being more productive, airlines squeezing the capacity and squeezing even the working hours of their people. But however, there's a main point as well that needs to be discussed, and I think should be discussed more, is the airspace congestion, because a lot of the time aircraft spend more time than needed in these airspaces, and thus reduces the productivity of it.
You're burning fuel, you're wasting time, you're running out of crew time.
Of course.
All those problems all become knock-on issues, right?
Yeah,
so,
especially because of the conflicts of these regions in general, all of it, Middle East and South Asia. There's a lot of military restricted zones, so there's a lot of discussions that needs to be done as well with these military people to try to decongest a bit and try to use a little bit more and have a European approach to military zones where it's a shared civilian military approach rather than just splitting both areas.
Yeah, it gets much more complicated. But even Europe is complicated. It's a lot of smaller countries.
Of course.
And trying to put those various air traffic control units together, working in a coordinated manner. People don't see airspace because it's not a physical, tangible thing. They can see a congested terminal and complain about it and write a letter to somebody. But nobody really sees what a congested airspace looks like, except for the people that are dealing with it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Air traffic controllers on their screens, they see it very well in Europe and the Middle East.
Well, like airport planning is a fundamental approach, and you look at all your systems and the congestion points. And sometimes it's terminal congestion, sometimes it's runway. But a lot of times, you could build all the terminals you want.
Of course.
But if you don't have airspace, you can't bring in any.
It's a full system, so you need your roads to be well to connect to the airport. You need your terminal, your runway, and your airspace. People talk a lot about these tangible, as you said, the infrastructure and buildings, but do they talk a bit less about the air traffic?
And we know that places like Gatwick have done a tremendous job. You leverage the technology, the infrastructure, and the people, and you get all three of them working together. Yeah, you can get a tremendous efficiency gain. But in a lot of these smaller countries, as they're developing their infrastructure, sometimes the methods and the techniques are not keeping up with the technology. And I think it's interesting that you're working in that space because we can build all the airports in the world. If we don't have an efficient airspace,
and airlines can still order the number of the aircraft that they want, but if we don't have airspace to fly them in, it's like if we don't have enough apron to park them in, then there's an issue.
So Egis has been growing and evolving over the last 5 or 10 years. I personally got to know them in Cyprus as part of the project I was involved in, and certainly in that 15 years they've grown and evolved. But particularly your airport side, it'd be interesting to hear where you think you see the Egis airport development going as an operator.
Of course, so Egis positioning on this sector is a bit different from other airport operators, where our preference is to be positioned on airports that are I would say medium-sized airports, that 5 to 15 million passengers a year, and these airports have a bit of a difference in operations than big hubs, and this is what we say to our the grantors, that it's always interesting to have big airport operators, but I'm not sure that they understand the importance of flexibility in terms of the manpower, in terms of operations, when it comes to smaller airports.
Our experiences in these medium to smaller sized airports, from 1 million to 5 million. A problem at a 15 million passenger airport can be solved by people and money.
Exactly.
At a 1 million passenger airport, it can't be solved by people and money. It's got to be creative because the economics aren't there. So you guys have done a great job in working in smaller markets and challenging markets.
Africa, for instance.
Africa. We've seen your success in those regions, and I think the way I look at it, there are a lot more airports out there of a 1 to 10 million passenger range that need those efficiency gains. They need the investment, but they're also potentially quite profitable because they're being ignored, but they have the tremendous ability to grow within their existing runway infrastructure.
Exactly.
A single runway airport at 1 million passengers can grow many millions of passengers before you have to build a second runway or a second terminal or a complicated baggage system. So
And you are in India. This is where, I mean, I think we're talking about the segment of 1 to 5 million or 1 to 10 million. Just think about the number of airports that have this size and that can have better operations and better level of operations. So Indonesia is another example, for instance. It's a country with a huge number of airports, but still has issues in terms of
and with the growth in passenger demand in Indonesia, if they don't figure out the airport development, those airplanes won't be flying because there won't be anywhere to fly to. Right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I have a feeling we could talk here for hours.
Of course, especially with you, Curtis.
Yeah. So, but I think maybe just in closing, would be really interested to hear what you think about the Indian market.
Yeah.
And where you think the biggest opportunities are in India, and then maybe we can wrap it up.
Sure. So from my perspective on the Indian market, I've been following up this market approximately 7 years now, talking to many people. From an airport operator's perspective, I think, and a foreign one, I think there's still we still have the Indian authorities need to have a bit more flexibility on regulations and on the way they tender the RFPs in terms of timelines, in terms of conditions, and this is what I will be talking about even in this conference today, about regulations.
Certainly the framework is improved, but it still has more.
Exactly, to attract, and this is what we look for. I mean, we're very happy and we were very interested to come to this market, but I think they still need to have some effort on improving the regulations and the way the RFPs are published. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I think we're about to head into a break, so let's cut it while we can.
Perfect. Thank you, Curtis.
Good to chat. Yeah.